Welcome to C Files. Thank you for joining me. Let's get right into it, folks. Well, and by the way, I don't preview this stuff. I'm seeing this for the first time, just like you're seeing it at the first time or hearing it at the first time. This is Donald J. Trump on True Social. This was put out February the 3rd, 2025 at 4:57 p.m. All right. Canada has agreed to ensure we have a secure northern border and to finally end the deadly scourge of drugs like fentanyl that have been pouring into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans while destroying their families and communities all across the country. Wasn't Trudeau just saying he's going to be the big man and take on Trump and, we'll put tariffs on you if you put tariffs on us? And what happened? Did he find out it was a losing game for him? I think so. Canada will implement their $1.3 billion border plan, and as per Prime Minister Trudeau, will be enforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Okay, what happened to Prime Minister Trudeau, and who are you? This is the power of negotiation. Oh, I got more. This is the power of negotiation. Everybody needs to calm down and stop getting all worked up every time there's a bump in the road. Sometimes that bump is there on purpose, designed to get a better deal. So everybody just calm down, be patient. As president, it is my responsibility to ensure the safety of all Americans, and I am doing just that. I am very pleased with this initial outcome, and the tariffs announced on Saturday will be paused for a 30-day period to see whether or not a final economic deal with Canada can be structured. Fairness for all. So that's Canada. What about Mexico? Same thing happened with Mexico. Yep. Mexico was going to be playing tough with Trump until they didn't. And it didn't take very long. Let me give you this. Here's a few facts about Canada and the U.S., and then I'll talk about Mexico. Canada's economy is 8% of the U.S. economy. Mexico's economy is 5% of the U.S. economy. Canada's exports 75% of its goods to the U.S., while the U.S. exports 15% to Canada. So a 25% tariff would hit 75% of the goods in Canada and only 15% of the goods in the U.S. 80% of inward FDI in Canada and Mexico comes from the U.S. Remittances account for 3% of Mexico's GDP, with 90% originating from the U.S. Canada's consumer market is 1/9 the size of the U.S. market, while Mexico's is 40% as large. Canada and Mexico will capitulate to every single one of Trump's demands and more in less than a month. The U.S. has all the leverage. We all know how it ends. That was put out by Trump. Let's see if I can find a date. I don't see a date on it. But obviously before this latest news coming from Canada and Mexico. So Mexico has agreed to put 10,000 National Guard troops on the border to stop the flow of fentanyl into the United States and the flow of illegal aliens into the United States. And the U.S. has agreed to make sure that there's not any flow of weapons going into Mexico. If you remember, during the not Bush, not Biden, the Obama administration, there was that operation that didn't make any sense to any American out of the federal government agencies, and I don't remember which one it was, where weapons were flowing into Mexico, and the cartels were getting in. And so that kind of stuff is over. That's stopped. That's not happening. So that's the big news coming out today. Oh, there's a lot more. And here's Trump on that part. Let me go here. So this is February 3rd, 2025, 10:41 a.m. So Trump makes a phone call to Mexico. He makes a phone call to Trudeau, and all of a sudden everything's resolved. Here's what he had to say about Mexico. I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum, I guess that's how you pronounce it, of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designed to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a one month period during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. That, ladies and gentlemen, is leadership. And really, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you are on. That is what you call getting things done. And it's not a matter of political ideology. It's a matter of just having the ability to go sit down at your desk and do the work. To have the resolve to resolve it, to take care of it, to get it done. And Trump is getting it done. And, I can't even imagine what the anti-Trumpers are saying today. I'm sure they've come up with some false narrative, some lie about Trump that they're going to try to foist onto the American people. It won't work. Or they'll try to spin it to where it's a bad thing. Yeah, Trump's being a bully. He's bullying the other nations. No, he's being a president. I mean, this is what a president looks like, a real president. All right. So this is just in. This is Gateway Pundit on True Social. President Trump signs executive order to create the first ever U.S. sovereign wealth fund. So let me see if I can bring this up. There is a video, so let's listen in.
Say goodbye to old costly
Let's
cable
not
TV
listen
once and for
into
all.
that. I hate commercials.
Well, check it out. Even though I was hanging out with my grandkids,
Okay, that either. There's always two. Here we go.
Is your Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and your Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to begin a process that will hopefully result in the creation of an American sovereign wealth fund.
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. We have a lot of things that create wealth, and you're seeing that over the last 2 weeks. I think we've created more wealth. Other people have created de-wealth. The people, my predecessors, we're creating a lot of wealth. Scott, maybe you'd like to say something about it, and I'd ask also Howard to say
Let me
something
bring it
about
over
it.
so you can see it.
Yes, sir. This is very exciting. We're going to stand this thing up within the next 12 months. We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work. And I think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to study best practices that's done around the world. It'll be a combination of liquid assets, assets that we have in this country as we work to bring them out for the American people.
The extraordinary size and scale of the U.S. government and the business it does with companies should create value for American citizens. If we are going to buy 2 billion COVID vaccines, maybe we should have some warrants and some equity in these companies and have that grow for the help of the American people. So I bring all these things together. I think Scott and I will create an amazing sovereign wealth fund for you, sir.
So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that, what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it, otherwise we won't. But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things.
It's interesting he mentions TikTok here because what's he planning on doing? He's going to rip TikTok right out from the tight, closed hands of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. He's got something up his sleeve. He's going to rip TikTok right out from under their nose, and he's going to make it an American company. I guarantee you that's what he's trying to do. And so what is a sovereign wealth fund? Sovereign wealth funds generally use a nation's reserves and invest the funds to generate returns, which can be used to address deficits, pay down debts, or bolster savings. It's unclear what types of safeguards would be placed around a U.S.-owned investment fund to ensure it has transparent reporting obligations and that the investments aren't benefiting political allies. Other countries that have a sovereign wealth fund include China, Singapore, New Zealand, Norway, and Saudi Arabia, among others. I've been to Singapore, by the way. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Norway's sovereign wealth fund, the government pension fund of Norway, is the largest in the world, with assets valued at $1.7 trillion, a substantial figure for a country of 5.5 million people. The Norwegian government is only permitted to spend a small part of the fund each year, but the total amounts of nearly 20% of its annual budget. So from what I can gather, what they're saying sounds like a interest-bearing fund, like you and I would have an individual retirement account, a Roth IRA, an IRA. Sounds like the government would have an account, something like that. Called a sovereign wealth fund, and it would grow and it would help to pay down the debt. And he's already knocking the deficit down. It's already going down. Doge is finding all kinds of money that's being poorly spent, wasted, being money laundered, all kinds of corruption, and how money is being spent in U.S. government. Doge is finding it already, and Elon Musk is applying very intelligent people and high technology to Doge, finding these things and rooting it out. And I would have to say that today, those who have been caught and have been fired, and those who have pushed a very evil agenda against the American people in the bureaucracy, the deep state, have been fired, and those who decided they're going to block the Trump administration agenda in the bureaucracy by doing what they have always done and gotten away with it, and who have now been fired because they've been found out and they lost their job because they're not doing the job the way the Trump administration told them they should do it. I can only imagine they're sitting at home today playing Give Me Shelter by the Rolling Stones, because they're going to need shelter because they've been found out, and the American people are not going to put up with their nonsense, and neither is the Trump administration. All right. So let me go back. Okay, let me see. Let me move on to the Gateway Pundit. Oh, names of, this is put out, names of FBI officials who worked on January 6 cases and Trump investigations identified. This is a Gateway Pundit. Just came out today at 2:20 p.m., February the 3rd, 2025. The names of the FBI officials who worked on January 6 cases and Trump witch hunts have been identified. According to NBC News, there were more than 2,400 cases in total. The FBI officials who worked on the J6 cases and Trump investigations were identified by a case management system. They are reportedly 5,000 employees who have been identified as subject to potential firing. This is Ken Dillon. Let me get my glasses on because I'm trying to read a blur. Ken Dillanian. He says, this is on X, an internal FBI document obtained by NBC News shows that executives use the FBI's Sentinel case file management system to identify agents and employees who worked on January 6 cases. The document says there were around 2,400 investigations in total. So, yeah, I wonder what Rachel Maddow's doing today. FBI Director Brian Driscoll is reportedly refusing to give the names of the officials, of course, involved in January 6 cases and Trump investigations. Brian Driscoll is currently serving as acting FBI director as Trump nominee Kash Patel waits confirmation. And as one former professional football player told me, whom I worked with him, where he played for the Dallas Cowboys, and we worked together in law enforcement. He says, Jeff, he says, do you know what NFL stands for? I says, National Football League. He goes, nope. I says, okay, what does it stand for? He says, not for long. You may not be there for very long, even if you're drafted out of college. What I can say for Director Brian Driscoll is not for long. Now, according to an email from Acting Director Brian Driscoll and reviewed by the Gateway Pundit, each field office is required to submit a list of all personnel, current and former, who were involved in January 6 investigations, prosecutions by noon on Tuesday, February the 4th. However, it was reported over the weekend that Brian Driscoll is on thin ice because he refused to deliver a list of officials involved in the witch hunt of Trump and political persecutions of J6ers. There are reports that FBI agents are planning to protest on Monday at the Washington, D.C. headquarters. So they decided to involve themselves in political, how would I say this? It's corruption, but it's targeting a political opponent. It's politicizing the FBI to go after, to try and dig up something. Show me the politician running for president that you don't like, and I will come up with a crime to attach to him. That's basically what this was. And it happened to be Trump. Last week, heads rolled at the Washington field office and Miami office after Trump fired nearly 90 FBI officials. I wonder if they were the ones that went through Byron's closet and Melania's personal, private stuff. That was just harassment. And over something that wasn't really even a crime. Anyway, 88 FBI officials were marched out of their offices on Friday. Folks, do you think the deep state might be getting cleaned out of Washington? Now, folks on the other side of the aisle will say, hey, Trump's becoming a dictator. He's becoming a dictator. Look what he's doing to the wonderful FBI agents who work so hard for the American people. It's the blah, 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 propaganda, 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 propaganda. He's cleaning out the corruption. I have worked for a police department in Southern California. A new chief walked in, and within a 6-month period, 2 lieutenants and I think 3, maybe 4 sergeants were fired because he found corruption. So were people whining and saying, oh, he fired the poor hardworking officers that were working so hard for the community? No, he cleaned out some corruption. So that's what Trump is doing. He's cleaning out the corruption out of the FBI. And you can't fire a civil servant, especially a law enforcement officer, unless you found something on them that they've done wrong. Oh, it's retaliation because they carried out, an indictment on Trump because Trump's this horrible criminal. No, that's not what happened. They targeted a political opponent. They did the bidding of Trump's political opponent in a political race for president. and they became politicized, and they used the power of the FBI to harass a political opponent to affect the outcome of an election. That's what happens in third world countries. Trump is finding out who was involved in this, and he's saying, bye-bye, you are not fit to remain in the FBI because you've been politicized and you're not doing your job according to how you're supposed to do it. Law enforcement officers are not supposed to be political in how they do their job. It doesn't matter what their political ideology is. It doesn't matter what their political beliefs are. It doesn't matter what political party they belong to. It doesn't matter what religion they are. Law enforcement officers are supposed to do their job according to the policies and procedures of the department and the laws that they are tasked to enforce. Period. You can't just make up laws and then go after someone. And you can't take laws that are on the books and stretch them beyond their realm, what they're designed to be used for, and use it to bring political heat upon a political opponent. I mean, I don't know how else to make it more clear than that. This was corruption, pure and simple. 90 FBI officials fired, and 88 of them marched out of their office on Friday. Yeah. It's about doggone time. Because guess who else these corrupt officials targeted? You and me. And the parents that were at school board meetings trying to advocate for their children at school board meetings, yeah, they became targets of these FBI officials. So good riddance. Bye-bye. Remember, Give Me Shelter by the Rolling Stones. Yeah. I wonder what Barack Obama's doing today. Anyway, so there's some news out of Panama. I'm trying to find that. Panama has capitulated as well. And they have kicked. Remember, Trump kept saying that there were Chinese companies that were running the Panama Canal. Well, they were actually out of Hong Kong. You know, if they would have been Hong Kong companies when the British still had Hong Kong before the Chinese took it over, before the Chinese Communist Party took it over, that would have been a different matter. But the fact that the Chinese Communist Party took over Hong Kong, and every company that used to be free enterprise companies are now owned by the CCP. And so the CCP being attached to those companies was basically running the Panama Canal. Well, Panama decided they were not going to they didn't want to get into a fight with Trump. So they kicked those companies out. And those companies are no longer running the Panama Canal. So I mean, this is how you get stuff done. Now, here's the thing. Tariffs only affect international corporations that ship goods across national lines between countries. What about indigenous, or as I say, domestic, I should say, corporations and domestic companies? There's no tariffs. No tariffs. So My Pillow founder is saying, let me go here. Mike Lindell is saying, no tariffs here. Save on American products at My Pillow up to 80% off. He's able to compete better when he's not stomped on by the big international corporations who have been taking advantage over everyone. You know, maybe we'll see mom and pop businesses come back. Maybe entrepreneurs will have a golden opportunity to go out and actually start a business and build it. Wouldn't that be an amazing thing? I'm tired. I don't want to see a bunch of uh, big corporations bringing stores in and putting them in here, and all we have is the big corporate fast food places and the big corporate stores, and that's it. We don't have any variety when it comes to mom and pop stores. Uh-uh. I want a even playing field. I want the mom and pop stores to be able to compete with the big boys. And Trump is beginning to even that out. Tariffs is a way of doing that. So let me go to, folks, things are happening and they're happening fast. So I'm going to the Epoch Times. Now, the deep state does like kicking back or trying to fight back, but they're not going to be very successful. New York AG tells hospitals to keep transgender procedures for minors despite Trump's order. We'll see how long that lasts. That was put out 4 minutes ago, literally 4 minutes ago. And guess who it is? Letitia James. Attorney General Letitia James said the state's anti-discrimination laws require that the procedures remain available. So let's hear what the automated AI voice has to say. There's a reason why they call it artificial intelligence.
New York AG urges hospitals to retain transgender procedures for minors. New York Attorney General Letitia James warned hospitals Monday that discontinuing transgender procedures for minors in response to President Donald Trump's executive order restricting federal funding for such services would violate state law. In a February 3rd letter to healthcare providers, James said that state anti-discrimination laws remain in effect regardless of federal funding availability. She cited protections for individuals based on gender identity, among other characteristics. Electing to refuse services to a class of individuals based on their protected status, such as withholding the availability of services from transgender individuals based on their gender identity or their diagnosis of gender dysphoria, while offering such services to cisgender individuals, is discrimination under New York law, James wrote. Her warning follows Trump's January 28 executive order, which bars federal support for gender transition procedures for individuals under 19. The order stated that such treatments, including puberty blockers and surgeries, are medically risky and potentially irreversible. Many minors lack the capacity to fully understand the long-term consequences of undergoing such procedures, the order stated. Across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claim that adults can change a child's sex through a series of irreversible medical interventions, Trump's order reads. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history, and it must end. Trump's directive prohibits federally run insurance programs like TRICARE and Medicaid from covering such treatments, orders the Department of Justice to pursue legal action against the practice, and restricts funding for hospitals and universities providing gender-affirming care, which the order describes as chemical and surgical mutilation.
So there's the key.
Following the order, the Office of Management and Budget issued a directive suspending federal grants, loans, and financial assistance related to these programs pending further review.
Don't need to go any further. Guess who's going to lose federal funding? Hospitals and universities that promote this and perform these operations. Because universities have hospitals, right? My last job before I retired was working for the University of California, San Diego. My job was to enforce the housing rules on campus. I worked with both the housing department and the police department. As a retired law enforcement officer, it was a great position for me to work. And so I was there for a while before I decided to move out here to North Carolina and be near family. But there's a hospital attached with UCSD in San Diego. There's also medical research facilities on campus. If they lose federal grants and federal funding, that's a big hit and a big impact on the university and the hospital. So you kind of get in a picture of how the game is played. And Trump is he's learned how to play it really well. He's outplaying the folks that have been in Washington playing that game for 30 years. They're losing the chess game. So, and of course, people have different ideologies and different belief systems. Now, I agree with Trump on this. This is, to mutilate children like that is child abuse, in my humble opinion. But some of you think mutilating children like that is the right of the child, and you can't violate the right of the child. I think that's twisted thinking. But, you're going to have to search your own heart between you and the Lord, because you're going to face him one day and have to give an account. So there's a Democrat senator who says he'll put a hold on Trump's State Department nominations. And then from Hawaii. Oh, I got to show you a picture of this guy. The Hawaiian lawmaker is acting in protest of recent talk about potentially dismantling U.S. aid, he says. So what this is referring to, U.S. aid was, it's an organization in the government that funnels money to poor countries to help to bring people out of poverty out of those countries. Well, it's been discovered that USAID has been money laundering, and the money is not going to the people who need it. It's just going to high officials in those countries to make them even richer, and it's being funneled for other things. It's not being used for what it's supposed to be used for. So Trump is bringing the heat down on USAID and is looking at the possibility of eliminating it altogether. But I want to show you a picture of this senator who wants to try to play ball with Trump, or try to play chess with Trump, I should say. There he is. So, from Hawaii, ladies and gentlemen, Senator Brian Schatz, S-C-H-A-T-Z, Democrat of Hawaii, if you want to make a phone call or send a letter or an email, said Monday that he will place a hold on President Donald Trump's State Department nominees following a recent flurry of activity in the U.S. Agency for Internal Development. Schatz, who sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said he put a blanket hold on the State Department picks in protest of recent talk about potentially dismantling USAID. Under the Senate's rules, one senator can hold up nominations even if the other 99 of them want them to move quickly. So if 99 senators want to confirm and one wants to hold it up, the one has the power to hold it up. And that forces the Senate to use up many hours of floor time to advance nominations or promotions. So he's just slowing the process. He says, I will oppose unanimous consent. He told the Wall Street Journal, I will vote no. I will do maximal delays until this is resolved. The senator said that he believes the courts may temporarily stop attempts to dissolve USAID. You cannot wave a wand and eliminate a department established by federal law, so it will be reversed by a court, Schatz said. I disagree. These departments are not congressional. They are executive branch. I think he's overstepping his bounds on that one. Trump has the ability to eliminate any department he wants in the executive branch. He's the head of the executive branch. And when the legislature tells the president, you can't do this or that in your own executive branch, you can't eliminate this department, you can't fire this person, they are crossing the boundaries between checks and balances. In other words, they're trying to step in and tell the executive branch what they can and cannot do when it's totally lawful for the executive branch to do it. So this guy he's pushing up the wrong tree, and I have a feeling he's not going to bode well on this. Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat Maryland, said at a rally near the USAID building on Monday that Trump's decision is a, quote, corrupt abuse of power, end quote, that will serve as a gift to our adversaries. Now, this is nothing more than Tavistock Institute designed rhetoric that is designed to mind manipulate the public so that they don't really understand what's going on. Trump and Elon Musk, head of the Department of Government Efficiency, have signaled that the agency may be facing major changes or even be scrapped in its entirety. And Trump can do that if he wants. He's the head of the executive branch. It's an executive branch agency. And the Congress has no say in the matter. That's the reality when it comes to the law. Musk said during an X Spaces event earlier in the day that Trump told him he wants to dissolve the program, while Trump said Sunday that radical lunatics have taken over the agency. Dozens of senior officials with USAID have been put on leave, contractors have been laid off, and employees were told Monday not to enter its Washington headquarters. So they were put on leave, and they were told, don't come into the Washington headquarters for USAID. Stay home. Whew. If you're an employee, that's what you don't want to hear. USAID's website and its account on X have been taken down. Sounds like that's a move toward eliminating the agency. USAID was established in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy to counter Soviet influence worldwide, but the problem is it became corrupt, and that's not what it ended up doing. By 2023, the agency, with more than 10,000 workers, or employees is a better term than workers, had a budget of more than $50 billion. Wow, taxpayers, you want to save about $50 billion? Get rid of a useless agency that's fighting against you. On Monday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he is now the acting director of USAID, suggesting that the agency was moved under the Department of State's purview. However, he said that he delegated his responsibility to someone else. I have delegated that authority to someone. I stay in touch with him, he said before expressing criticism of the agency. U.S. aid is not functioning. It has to be aligned with U.S. policy. It needs to be aligned with the national interests of the U.S., Rubio told reporters in El Salvador. They're not a global charity. These are taxpayer dollars. People are asking simple questions. What are they doing with the money? We are spending taxpayers' money. We owe the taxpayers assurances that it furthers our national interest. Trump administration's freeze on foreign aid last month put a pause on a number of U.S. aid programs around the world, including an HIV and AIDS program that was set up in the early 2000s under President George W. Bush. And if you know anything about Fauci and his work with AIDS, you'll know it was extremely corrupt, and a lot of people were severely harmed by the AIDS program under Fauci, and it was Fauci's fault that happened. And that's why a lot of people were against Fauci when the last pandemic came up and he was pushing all the things he was pushing in the last pandemic. So the Epoch Times contacted Schatz's office for comment on Monday, but didn't get anything. So anyway, well, actually, they did get something that was in the article. So yeah, they're trying to fight back, folks, but it's like they're fighting. It's like they're right-handed, and they're only fighting with their left hand, and they got their right hand tied behind their back, and they can't get into the boxing match very well and do very well with it because, well, they're being dismantled. And they have been corrupt for so many years. And we're seeing so many things happen so fast now, and it's all good stuff, that it makes me wonder. I mean, we're only 2 weeks into the Trump administration presidency. What's going to be happening over the next 4 years? I mean, how far will we go with this march toward eliminating debt and bringing in prosperity? It might be beyond anyone's imagination at this point. And if they can deport thousands of very dangerous criminals who are here illegally within a 2-week period of the administration coming in, and which they have done, and can already begin securing the border, which they have done, how many are they going to be able to deport in a 4-year period? I'm going to say hundreds of thousands. Here's the thing. Why are the deep state swamp monsters and the political swamp monsters fighting back? It's because they're losing their voting bloc. The people that are being deported are the people that vote for them. And they're going ballistic. They're losing their minds. They're very angry and upset because they lose their voting bloc is being deported out of the country. And these are very narcissistic, very nasty people that bring these voting blocs illegally into the country to vote for them so that they can have power. And power is what they worship. And money is what they worship because money brings them power. And anytime they can take their jackbooted boot and stomp on the head of the American people, they will do so as long as it brings them power. Because that's what they live for. They have no conscience. They have no morals. They feign morals and highfalutin, self-righteous morality when they need to manipulate and control the American people, and to get the American people to think that, oh, they're so concerned about this or concerned about that, and they're just outraged, morally outraged over this. They're going to be morally outraged because people are being deported out of this country, and it's just they're picking on the poor people, and it's just horrible, and I'm morally outraged about that. No, what you're morally outraged about is the fact that your voting block is being sent to a foreign country and they can't vote for you in the next election. That's the problem. You have no morals and there's no real outrage. It's feigned. Maybe the outrage is they're angry that they're going to lose because all the blue that's illegally here is now going elsewhere. And how much more red will that make New York and California and other places like that? It will fundamentally change the nation. And as this continues to happen, we will get closer and closer and closer to a true vote in our country, rather than a corrupt and fake vote in our country. So that's what's happening. There's a lot more, but we're out of time. So let me say this. God's providence is in charge of all of this. God is orchestrating this. Just like God orchestrated the last 4 years under the Biden administration, God is going to orchestrate the 4 years that's coming under the Trump administration. And God used the Biden administration as a wake-up call for the American people. And his judgment was falling down upon America because America was not repenting and doing the right thing. But what I believe has happened is that America started to repent under the Biden administration and recognize the wrongs that we were doing, and we began to reverse course, and we began to give God the glory for the things that he does in our nation. And we began to praise him and to honor him and to obey him. And so what is God doing? Now he's showing us his grace and his mercy, and he's taking the criminal element out of the nation. Let me go to a passage, and we'll close with this, and I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. See if this will come on. There it goes. Now, don't mind the light. I got to read this. Ezekiel 14, if you read it, you got to read the whole chapter because he explains it very carefully and through the whole chapter. But verse 21 is a summary of the chapter. And it says this, "For thus says the Lord God, how much more when I send my sore 4 judgments upon Jerusalem." So God has 4 judgments that are repeated all the time through the prophets in the scriptures, talking not only about Jerusalem, but other nations as well. And they are the sword, which is war and crime, and famine, hunger. And the noisome beast, that's an invading army into a person's nation. And the pestilence, that's disease. So God is taking away the sword from America because America is repenting. He had brought the sword onto us during the Biden administration, and we suffered greatly under that sword. And he had brought the pestilence, and we suffered greatly under the pestilence, even if that pestilence, let me turn this off, even if that pestilence was man created, it was still a pestilence that was under the supervision, the providence of God, because God was bringing judgment. What is God doing now? He's bringing his mercy and his grace. And he's saying, okay, you're repenting and you're starting to turn from your wicked ways and you're starting to turn back to me. I will bless your nation as long as you do that. And that's what we're seeing. So the next 4 years might be extremely interesting, because as God is blessing his people, he's bringing judgment down upon those who declared war on his people, and those who have opposed his people. They will suffer the judgment of God, while God's people will live in the mercy and grace and the blessings of God. That's what I believe we're seeing. And so as I document this on the C files, we will continue to see in a practical fashion through these news revelations, these news articles from reliable sources, how God is doing it. Exactly what does it look like when God judges the wicked and blesses the repentant? Well, we'll find out. And we're already finding out, but we'll find out more as we continue here on the C Files. And there are many other channels on YouTube and Rumble and BitChute and other areas. They're doing a wonderful work, and they're revealing this truth to the American people and to the world. Thanks for watching. God bless. We'll see you next time on the C Files.